Donald Trump spoke in Iowa. He actually had multiple speeches. This is one I haven't yet covered. And it was very strange. In the dark, this was in Des Moines, Iowa. He seems not to be lit well, and deranged. The dark and deranged speech in Des Moines, Iowa from Donald Trump. That's what I have for you, starting with this clip.
As an example, Barack Hussein Obama got substantially less votes in his second term, and he won. We got more votes than anybody's ever gotten, and we didn't win. Explain that. I can explain it, okay? The problem.
I'm a stable genius. I could explain it. Yeah, so you got not more votes than anyone ever. You got more votes than any sitting president in history. But guess what? There's one person, he wasn't a sitting president at the time, who got more votes than you, Joe Biden, and you lost. But this type of conspiracy questioning, where it's all of these questions you throw out that are perfectly answerable. For example, why is it that Trump could get so many votes compared to other elections in history and still lose? The entire election had massive turnout. So Trump did get a lot of votes and Biden got more. It's possible. It happened. We watched it happen. You can answer these questions. It's kind of Tucker Carlson. Why is this happening? Why are M&Ms less hot to me now? There must be a woke conspiracy. Just answer the questions and then stop bothering me about it.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Number one, I actually don't know who was speaking in that video because the speaker was just not properly illuminated. I assume it was Donald Trump. Not quite sure. He should have borrowed Carrie Lake's ring light.
Just a silhouette. Oh, right.
Yeah, like that would have helped. Donald, here
the
you
fascist
go,
hologram
Donald.
light.
Yeah, I mean, no. To your point, though, it is so funny. Like, listen, if you want to give President Trump his kudos for earning more votes than any sitting president during an election, fair enough. I mean, don't take that away from him. You don't have to. But this idea that simply because, he got more votes in round two than Obama, who was also an historically popular president, did in round one, like this idea that what matters at the end of the day is how many votes you get next to the person you're running against, not an earlier version of yourself. So when President Obama was running in 2012, it didn't matter that he got fewer votes than in 2008 because he was running against Mitt Romney in 2012. That's what mattered. And he got more votes than Romney. That's all that matters. Same thing with Trump in 2020. Who cares that you got more in 2020 than in 2016? Biden got more than you, Hillary, Obama. That's what matters, is who you're running against. And that just seems to go right over his head.
Absolutely. Next clip here from the speech.
Look at what they've done to the January 6 people. They've destroyed them and destroyed their lives. And a lot of them didn't even go into the building. It was a disgrace. What's going on? That is a disgrace. That's going to go down in history ultimately. And Ashley Babbitt was killed, shot by, in my opinion, a rogue cop. He had no business doing that. He shot her unarmed. And actually, people say she was trying to hold back the people that were pushing her forward. Ashley Babbitt was the one that was killed. She was the one that was killed.
He is really bringing up Ashley Babbitt a lot recently. And to me, what's really enraging about that talking point is Ashley Babbitt made the decision. Obviously, every adult's responsible for their actions to attack the Capitol, all of that. So I'm not taking away from that reality. But if you want to blame someone outside, it's not the police officer, it's Trump. If you want to blame someone for Ashley Babbitt being there and attacking the Capitol, besides her making the decision to do so, the only other person you could talk about within that conversation is Donald Trump, because he lied to her. How is it? I just wish his followers could tap into this. She is not alive today because she bought into lies told by Trump about the election. Why? Because he was such a snowflake. He couldn't accept the fact he lost an election. And so he riled up this mob. They all bought into his lies and attacked the Capitol. And then the police officer attempted and wasn't in the wrong in doing what he did, even though it is heartbreaking when someone loses their life like that. The reason, though, that she was even there is because of lies told by Donald Trump. He should have some, obviously he won't, moral awakening and realize complaining about her every day is just should be a reminder of what you've done, the damage you've caused, again, because you couldn't just accept, like all these other candidates, all these other presidents have in the past, that you lost to Joe Biden.
No, 100%. Listen, whether or not Donald Trump has any legal culpability in the death of Ashley Babbitt or January 6th, those are questions that will be answered once special counsel Jack Smith concludes his investigation into Trump's involvement with January 6th and his retention of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, which we're hearing good news about that, at least as far as the left is concerned. But he is unquestionably morally culpable for her death as well, because, as you say, this is a woman who, like you said, she was an adult and she was a veteran as well. So she probably had even more conception of her actions than the average person, because she also took an oath during her service, to defend the Constitution and things like that. And she betrayed all that with her personal decision, but she was also radicalized by the lies of Donald Trump. So she was as much a victim as a perpetrator as well. And it is tragic. But the idea that it was the Capitol Police or anybody else defending our lawmakers against a coup attempt, that they're legally and morally culpable, and not, the invaders, and not the person who deceived the invaders into invading in the first place. It's an absolute disgrace. And it's also tragic that people who are close to, Ashley Babbitt have not spoken out against this even more, because, again, like you said, if you do an evaluation of it, you would think that they would be furious with Trump first and foremost for lying to Babbitt in the first place.
Yes. Something a little bit more lighthearted here.
It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke, because I hear woke. It's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is.
So before we discuss, play this next clip from after the clip you just watched, okay? A different event, this Fox News town hall, and he says this.
But we did a lot. Our military is great. A lot of things going on with our military, with the woke and all this nonsense. They're not learning to fight and protect us from some very bad people. They want to go woke. That's all they talk about.
So, not consistent, but he was correct in the first clip that he included, himself included, when they use this term. As I've said many, many times, especially with Ron DeSantis, who just can't stop glitching out saying that word constantly, no matter the subject, it doesn't actually mean something to them. It does mean something, being aware of social injustices, to people who are kind of on the left or buy into the positive side of what that word could mean. But the people who hate the word, it's just a nebulous term for erg. I don't like those people.
Yeah, it's almost I've heard some people on Twitter and some political commentators refer to it as woke Tourette's. This idea that when you need some sort of buzzword to fill the space, you'll just use woke, because to the Republican base, it is a polarizing word that engenders such intense rage. But what's funny is poll after poll has shown, even recently, that the majority of Americans recognize that woke simply means to be aware of social injustice, and that's important. So what mobilizes the Republican base stands in stark contrast, is mutually exclusive to what the vast majority of the country cares about. And so what's interesting about those two clips, when you play them back to back, is it evidence that Donald Trump will just say whatever he wants whenever he's desperately reaching for a word? Sure. But you could also interpret it, maybe there's some low cunning involved too. He recognizes that it's a way to hit DeSantis, who of course is overusing the word woke. We're going to leave woke in the dustbin of history and all that. So it's a way to hit DeSantis when it's convenient, but also in a different setting with different people in a different town hall. He might think, actually, no, that I can see, I'm just gauging the audience and they might respond well. This might get applause and viral moments if I lean into the woke trope as well. So at the end of the day, that's just proof that the Republican Party and the Republican base, unfortunately, does not reward consistency. They don't want Trump or care for Trump to be consistent. Are you pro woke? Do you care about woke? Do you hate woke? Where do you stand on the woke issue? He says one thing on Monday and a different thing on Tuesday and a third thing on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Last clip here.
It's going to be painful because China doesn't want to make this deal, and you're going to have to, live with it. And I would watch people being interviewed in Iowa, Nebraska, different places, and they'd say, it's painful right now. I said, you're going to go through a little pain before I get this deal done because you have to. That's the way it works. And we should have gone through a little more pain perhaps over the last few days to get maybe a deal done. But if you understand what I mean.
If you understand what I mean. Josiah?
Right there. It's actually not surprising because he said it during the CNN town hall weeks ago, before the debt ceiling negotiations had really kicked off in earnest. Donald Trump wanted the U.S. to default. He did not want a deal to be negotiated successfully between President Biden and congressional Republicans, because he rightly understood that that would hurt Biden politically if there was no deal, and that would benefit him and the Republican Party politically as well. Republicans will exploit a crisis. They will create, manufacture, exacerbate existing crises. They'll do whatever they have to. And when Trump was called out on that, like, well, listen, when you were president, you demanded clean debt ceiling lifts and that nobody take advantage of the situation to hurt you politically, because it would hurt so many millions of Americans. And Democrats agreed, and they didn't hurt you with it. They didn't even try. Why did you say one thing when you were president, but now you're saying something else entirely? And he told Caitlin Collins very bluntly and got applause for it. It's because I'm not president anymore. So yeah, the Republicans, right. It's just absolutely, it's disgusting. And again, he's not only not punished for his lack of consistency, he's rewarded for it.
By his own supporters who are hearing him say there should have been more pain. And he does want, for his own political gain, he would have wanted an agreement not to be struck between Kevin McCarthy and Biden so that Biden got hurt politically, and that would maybe hurt his chances against Biden in 2024. And to hear that from someone who you support, wrapped up in the hypocrisy involved based on him previously while he was president, saying we shouldn't use the raising of the debt ceiling as leverage to get policy concessions, and also him saying I would be fine with you guys suffering a lot, just really, he's not going to word it this way, but to hurt Biden and help him politically. It is really, really vile, and people go for it. And the inconsistency, the hypocrisy, as you've said many times and we discussed on the show, it's the superpower. If your followers are okay with you being inconsistent and not attempting to be honest, then in a sort of political debate setting, you have the upper hand because you can never be
held accountable
for your inconsistencies if you don't care and your followers don't care, but also not because you're being dishonest, and that shouldn't be something that's rewarded in a political environment. But unfortunately, it is right now.
100%. And again, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, like, listen, I wish we lived in a world where certain, norms and traditions were mutually respected. And so, like, this idea, for example, that, consistency is important among your political candidates. I wish that was still the case and still reciprocal. But the reality is, in this political climate, only one side gets to be graded on a curve in that way. Only the Republican Party and the Republican leading candidates can say one thing on Monday and a different thing on Tuesday. And not only does their base not care, as well as the conservative leaders and major elements of the media, not only do they not care, they celebrate it. Now, imagine if President Biden, or then candidate Biden, or even just a prominent Democrat period, had said anything like that about, you need to suffer a bit more to get a better deal. Imagine the outrage.
And mainstream media will, to prove that they're not too biased, go crazy when a Democrat does something like that. And then just quickly gets over the fact that Republicans, the GOP candidates, are constantly doing it. And you went over during a recent, I think it was today, a segment on your show, a former Obama official who called this out in regard to the debt ceiling agreement, and pointed out the fact that even mainstream media outlets are saying Kevin McCarthy is great for what he did with this agreement, and somehow this is a big victory for him. Again, to show that look, we're not too biased. We think Kevin McCarthy did a really good thing, even though he was threatening to crash the economy to get policy concessions, and he still lost.
He threatened to crash the economy to get concessions from Biden, and then he got actually very few concessions from Biden. So he's a failure on multiple fronts. And this idea that he's a success because he hasn't lost his job yet. I mean, so, when McCarthy, after the 15 rounds of voting to get this job, one of the things that he had to concede to the Freedom Caucus was the motion to vacate the chair, which is the American version of the vote of no confidence. So any member of the House of Representatives, Luke, can trigger a vote. You still have to win the vote, but they can trigger a vote to get rid of McCarthy. So you could easily conceive of a situation, even if they know it's not going to win, just to embarrass him, just to frustrate him. Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, Lauren Boebert, any of the majority of the Freedom Caucus triggering this vote just to express their displeasure at Speaker McCarthy. So this idea that he won because he hasn't lost his job, okay, but that may still happen. And by the way, if a motion to vacate the chair does happen, if he does keep his job, if he survives the vote, it may very well be because Democrats have to come to his rescue and be like, you know what, Kev, we don't like you all that much, but you know what, you're better than the crazy alternative. So here, we'll help you out, buddy. We'll throw you a lifeline. So it's preposterous.
Thank you so much for watching. For the outro on this video, I want to plug Josiah's channel. Hit them with it, Josiah.
Hey, everybody. I appreciate you watching. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. One word, Pondering Politics. If you like progressive commentary that focuses on coalition building with other elements of the left and calling the Republican Party out for what it's become, I hope you'll view my channel. Give me a like and subscribe and some feedback. Again, youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. Thanks again.